For us here in the United States, our breath is kicking. We have one of the worst breaths in the world. The Journal of California Dental Association zooms in and says that 50% of folks in the US have halitosis, one of the highest in countries around. All right, so how many of us at one point have been told that our breath was less than desirable? And if you say it never happened to you, I don't believe it. We all at some point have had less than desirable breath. And that's okay, it's natural, right? Sometimes it happens. Every now and then we eat some garlic or onions, even some strong spices, and there's some lingering effects, right? Lingering aromatics that we're breathing out. And that's all right. But if you're suffering with bad breath, like it's a thing and you're insecure about it, and you have people mentioning it to you, then we gotta dive deeper into what's going on. And if you don't have chronically bad breath, I'm gonna give you some dope tips, any way to stay fresh. So bad breath, especially when it's chronic, can take a toll on your mental health, even if you don't realize it. Now, folks with bad breath can develop poor social communication, leading to more and more isolation. You may have found that before. And even being avoidant in social situations because they know their breath is not gonna be what they want it to be. So ironically, it's been reported in several studies actually, that the more anxiety-ridden and stressful the circumstance, the more intense and frequent the bad breath. So not using your voice or stifling your voice because breath insecurity is going to create internal discomfort, which will lead to a mental health disruption. And that's just what we see. Anxiety, stress, and depression are all connected to bad breath. Okay, so halitosis is the term for bad breath. A study in the Journal of Oral Health and Preventative Dentistry explains that the prevalence of halitosis is between 22 to 50%. Now imagine a quarter to half you listening have halitosis. And for us here in the United States, our breath is kicking. We have one of the worst breaths in the world. The Journal of California Dental Association zooms in and says that 50% of folks in the US have halitosis, one of the highest in countries around. Versus, say, China with about 27%, Japan with about 24%, Brazil at 15%, and Switzerland 0 to 10%. But what's happening in our mouth when our fresh breath is compromised? It's the result of a dysbiotic oral flora. Just like you have an imbalance in the gut, you can also have an imbalance in the mouth. And when you do, oh boy. Those pathogenic bacteria, they're metabolizing amino acids from that yummy food you just ate. And they're releasing volatile compounds, mostly sulfur-based, which explain that sharp, eggy, garlicky, broccoli scent of bad breath. Couple that with putrefaction of food remnants that are stuck in your mouth, and you got yourself a recipe for social stigmatization. So you got bad breath, what do? Here are my top tips. These sulfur-producing bacteria I just mentioned mainly live in the tongue and the gingival sulcus between the teeth. So naturally, you gotta brush your tongue 1 or 2 times per day. Use a tongue scraper and get that coating that you see all the way out. You gotta floss at least 1 time per day. This is where both food particles and those bacteria live. It's a really important intervention. And they help with removing these biofilms where these bacteria live. And these help, but similar to something like gum, they don't get to the root. More importantly is changing the soil versus cutting down the rainforest. I'm gonna go into what foods to eat later, but stay away from those antiseptic mouthwashes. Toothpaste with chemicals and chemical coloring, these are surefire ways to disrupt the oral biome. Now, a few lifestyle things. We know that if you have a history of smoking, it can cause bad breath because of residues of chemical compounds that are stuck in the mouth. But did you know alcohol can cause bad breath? And in short and long term. Why? Well, there's a few reasons. 90% of alcohol converts into acetic acid, which will cause bad breath. It also causes dehydration and less salivary production. Now, this is an issue because you need saliva to clean out the mouth. The more dry it is, the more the pathogenic sulfur-producing bacteria begin to multiply. Longer term, as you continue to drink, you continue this mechanism of the disruption, and it creates a change in the flora of the mouth. Now your commensal bacteria are taken over by the ones that are causing disease and bad breath. Also, we know that alcohol will lead to bad breath because of disruption in gut health. If your gut's a mess, so is your mouth. One of the major causes of bad breath that is coming from the gut is constipation, a major cause. You should be pooping every day, ideally after every single meal. I just did a bloat show, and I want to talk about constipation. Pooping properly is essential to gut health, hormone health, and overall good breath. Now, if you don't, get yourself a squatty potty for a natural position when evacuating. Talk to your doctor about herbs and nutraceuticals that may help support regular bowel movements. Look into coffee enemas, look into mindfulness techniques on letting go of stomach tension, eating mindfully your food, get your movement on, drink at least half your body weight in ounces of water, talk to your doctor about colonics if you need to, look into probiotics. But you gotta get your constipation in check in order to help your gut and ultimately help your halitosis. So start eating foods that are supporting the gut and oral health. The same ones, coincidentally, for good gut health, prebiotic and probiotic foods. Prebiotics like chicory, dandelion, Jerusalem artichoke, jicama, one of my favorites, mushrooms, asparagus, banana, apple, watermelon, white peaches, how about oats, cocoa, seaweed, legumes, one of my favorite, like chickpeas and lentils, red beans. What about the probiotic foods, the ones that are rich in those good bacteria? Miso, kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh, kefir, kombucha, etc. All these are going to be helpful for getting your bowel movements going and ultimately better breath. One of the main manifestations is heartburn or gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD. The reflux of the acid can cause a sour smell to come up through the esophagus and into the mouth. You can learn more about that and all the solutions I talk about heartburn on episode 34 years ago. I go into all the details. But if you have H. pylori in the gut, it can be the cause of bad breath. Now, not many people know this out here. If you have nausea, bloating, or pain, it can be driving your bad breath. This bacteria can cause peptic ulcers, heartburn, and can also lead to halitosis, bad breath. If you suspect that you have H. pylori, you gotta get checked for this, especially long-term, because it can lead to stomach cancer. Low incidence, but you gotta make sure you check it. SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, another cause of bad breath. I also talk about on episode 34, at least the physical aspects of it. But go check that out. A lot of people suffer with bloating, and this is a major cause. You gotta check your stomach acid. If you're not producing enough, you also gotta check your mindfulness around digestion, right? The same thing with constipation. Check your emotional component. I find a lot of people who have SIBO have tension in their digestive system and are not getting to the emotional component of their tension. SIBO should be fairly easy to treat when you take these approaches into account. You know, mouth breathing can be the reason you have bad breath. Now, you may not realize it, but as your mouth breathes, you are inviting the growth of these sulfur-producing bacteria that I mentioned earlier. This is because saliva is essential for good oral health. A dry mouth equals bad breath. Mouth breathing equals dry mouth. So bring awareness if you're mouth breathing and try mouth taping at night. Not only are you protecting your teeth, but you're also protecting your breath overall and other people. Chlorophyll, anecdotally, has been really powerful at neutralizing bad breath. Chlorophyll is said to target and eliminate the toxins that are coming from the bacteria for many people. In effect, basically what's happening, it's neutralizing those odors by removing those sulfur-rich toxins. Another thing that I really like is xylitol. It's a sugar alcohol, and if you have a really imbalanced digestive system, can cause more bloating because it's not breaking down properly or more gas. But if you really have worked on your digestive system and don't have gut issues, xylitol is going to be really helpful because it reduces plaque adherence, increases salivary production. Remember I talked about saliva being essential for good breath. Inhibits enamel demineralization, right? So it's actually preventing cavities, which happens every single time you eat, your teeth are demineralizing. I eat xylitol after every single meal. It's also helpful for good breath. Some other easy practices, change your toothbrush every 2 months. Make sure you got an environmentally friendly one, but change your toothbrush every 2 months. If you wear a retainer, make sure you're cleaning it thoroughly, keeping it in water and soap, or whatever cleaning detergent you have that is safe and non-toxic. And go get a dental cleaning at least 2 times a year. We grossly underestimate how often we need to make sure our pearly whites are clean, and that's going to be helpful for our oral biome and making sure our mouth is on par with the best of them. So if none of these help and you suspect a more serious, deeper issue like kidney disease can cause bad breath or kidney failure, liver disease or liver failure can cause bad breath, diabetes can cause bad breath, sleep apnea can cause bad breath, and cancer. So if you do suspect any of these, make sure you go talk to your doctor immediately. All right, so there you have it. Some of the common causes of halitosis. A lot of people suffer from it, but we really, really need to put our oral health at the top of our priorities. Just make sure you give your mouth a little bit more love, and it goes a really, really long way. But think of it from the deepest level, and that's the biome, the bacteria in your mouth. The good commensals need to be thriving. The pathogenic ones need to be withering away and sent into the weeds. Make sure you're doing all of these interventions if you are suffering with bad breath and see how it helps you.